Well, MK Ultra may sound like a conspiracy. Well, MK Ultra may sound like a conspiracy theory, something out of Jason Bourne movies where the CIA performs mind control on unwitting CIA agents, but it's much bigger than that, and it's not a conspiracy theory at all. In fact, it's very real, and it's very alive and well today by the deep state, by the CIA, by the shadow government that is running things. How do we know that? Because our next guest was the victim of that. His entire family was the victim of an MK Ultra, some sort of directed energy weapon attack against his family. And that person happened to work for the CIA, 17 years as a CIA veteran. He's written multiple books on the subject, and his most recent book is Twilight of the Shadow Government, and how this deep state rot needs to be eliminated from America. Kevin Shipp is his name, and he joins us now. Kevin, thank you for being here. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Clayton. Good to be back with you.
So you and I talked a number of times here on the show, but today I really wanted to zero in and focus on MK Ultra and mind control and these nefarious weapons that the agency has at their disposal, the deep state has at its disposal. Maybe you can just take us to a 30,000-foot level when someone says, this is a conspiracy theories, these are propaganda, they don't have this stuff. What do you say to somebody like that?
Well, that's what I used to think. When I was a good CIA officer, I didn't think those things existed. This stuff is compartmented at the high levels, probably top secret SCI. I didn't know they were there until they were used on me. Which was a great eye-opener. And I had done an international investigation and uncovered a serious vulnerability in U.S. embassies where any foreign national in the visa section could go through the unclassified computer, hack in, and identify the names and the addresses of our case officers and chief of stations, and by extension their assets in that country. So I put together an extensive report, sent it to CIA management. I got a phone call from the division involved, ominous call from the division chief telling me to drop it, do not investigate it further, it would be my career. Then he hung up. Then my report was deleted from the CIA headquarters server. I sent it 4 times to the division involved. Each time they claimed that they lost it or they never got it. Well, my report leaked out to the Department of State senior IG, and I got a call one day. Listen, Kevin, we think you may be onto something here. Do not tell the CIA that you're involved in this or we're doing this. We're going to go worldwide to do an investigation in embassies and see if what you may have uncovered is true. Keep your head low, and you'll hear from us in about 3 months. Sure enough, 3 months later, the secure phone rings. I pick it up, and I'll call him Jim. He says, Kev, you need to get over the main state immediately. Can you do that? Yes, sir. So I went over there, and they buzzed me into the big conference room with a long walnut table, and they said, Kev, it's not just as bad as you thought. It is worse. We were able to go to every single embassy, go into the visa section with all the foreign nationals, and hack right in and identify CIA cover officers in those embassies. And he said, now just hold on. We got another visitor coming. I had no idea this was going to happen. We have another visitor coming. Wait about 10 minutes. The door buzzes. They escort him in walks the GS-15 CIA manager that was in charge of that program and had destroyed my documents and had threatened me. And they said, sir, have a seat at the end of the table. And State IG stood up and said, consider this an official rebuke by Department of State IG to you, the CIA, for putting the lives of your agents at risk for over 10 years and then covering it up. And he froze in shock. And I sat there and watched my career dissolve. And then they said, you can go now. Oh, and they said, one last thing. This report is going to be published to the entire intelligence community so they see what the CIA has done. Well, he walked out kind of in shock. I remember they thanked me, and I thanked them for all the work they did. And I went back to headquarters and was just kind of left on my own. And it was like I had a laser dot, figuratively speaking, on my back. I knew they were coming for me eventually. So anyway, they assigned me subsequent to that to a secret base inside the United States and commanded that I and my family move onto this base. And they moved us into a house that the CIA knew was contaminated. The previous residents had been evacuated because they were very ill. So they moved us into that house intentionally on orders of the chief of the base. And within, 3 months, everybody started getting desperately ill. So my kids' throats were swelling up. I had to take them to the emergency room a couple times. We were having some severe headaches. My wife was basically bedridden with dementia. So there was something we knew there was a poison in that house. It wound up being, the house was riddled through the walls with black mold. It was also leaking what's mycotoxin, which is a chemical weapon that Saddam Hussein used in Iraq. It was the yellow rain. I found that leaking in the ceiling. And the only way you can find it that the CIA didn't count on was I researched and found a black light will cause these mycotoxins to grow iridescent green. So I hit the ceiling with the black light. Sure enough, there were mycotoxins leaking in, which is a neurotoxin leaking in through the ceiling. Took my attorney back. We left the house. Someone broke in. We came back. To make a long story short, took my attorney back. We hit the ceiling in with a black light, and someone had broken in and painted some chemical over the mycotoxin, and they didn't realize I was using a black light. So we caught him breaking in and trying to cover that up. And I remember Clint Hero, my attorney, looked at me and he goes, man, this is like 3 days of the Condor. I'm like, goodness gracious. And then it got worse from there. So I contacted the CIA and told them, and we did. We filed suit against the rental company. We had a rental property on this residence, and we filed a complaint for the black mold. And I used that as the reason I had the authority to do this. I requested that the CIA give my attorney, Clint, be a CIA clearance. Now, the CIA always refuses you having your own attorney. If you may know this, but you have to use a CIA attorney. They have to have control of all of your documents, all of your evidence in CIA headquarters, and then they classify it. Well, I do that. So I got my attorney cleared with a secret clearance, telling the CIA that it was for the rental claim that we had. So they granted him a clearance. We turned around and we sued them for a personal injury complaint because of my family was desperately ill. My son Joey's immune system was so bad. They said it looked like he had AIDS. We tested him twice. He didn't. Another immunologist said it looked like he'd been exposed to a burst of radiation. So after the poisoning and everybody got really sick, I filed suit, and that's when the fun began. We were bugged. We were followed. And then this weird neurological stuff started happening. My wife started getting severe headaches so bad, the doctor put her on morphine, and he couldn't tell what was causing it. He put her on morphine. Then she got dementia and was bedridden. My oldest son was having severe headaches. He got the symptoms of PTSD, serious anxiety attacks. My 2 little kids who eventually started losing their sight from some neurological issue. And of course, they went after all of us with whatever this thing was. My son got the worst of it, and because I had signed a secrecy agreement, they thought they could use that to shut me up. Well, everybody knows now that didn't work, but Joey didn't. And so he knew some of the things on that base that they didn't want the public to know about. So I think they went after him with a vengeance and really damaged him neurological. He was diagnosed, and I have the doctor's diagnosis that I sent you. He was diagnosed with severe PTSD. He couldn't work, couldn't provide for his family. He sank down into a deep depression, and now we don't know where he is. He's living somewhere in Florida. We're trying to find him. And ever since then, to this day, he's been very, very sick. My now former wife, because this basically ended our marriage, she has PTSD and is too terrified of the CIA to even speak about it. So we were hit with something that permanently damaged every single one of us neurologically rather. And it wasn't until I put all the pieces together, because I try to stay, with the facts and the evidence that I have and the doctor's diagnosis and all of that, because that's important for credibility's sake. And after I put it all together, it became pretty clear to me that we had been hit with some sort of electric weapon that had damaged every single one of us neurologically. Now, an senior IG officer came out later and confessed to me that George Tenet and Buzzy Krongard were ordered to silence and destroy me because they were afraid of people finding out what was on the base. So
the head of the CIA? CIA, the head of the CIA, and Buzzy Krongard. Yeah.
And Buzzy Krongard, both of which are now in twilight of the shadow government, exposing what they did. This senior IG officer, we were out as a program. I was a program manager for a company. He came over and sat down, and I knew him very well. He goes, "Hey, Kev, I just want to apologize to you." I said, "Why, Larry?" He goes, "I was a senior officer on the CIA IG. We were ordered by George Tenet to silence and destroy you before your family before your story could come out to the press. They raised the interest rates on all my CIA credit union loans. They blocked loans that we were trying to get to survive, and on and on and on it went. But they hit us with something bad, and every single one of us is still suffering from the effects of that. Both of my younger children are having vision problems. They've got neural damage behind their eyes. My daughter almost went blind, and my son had exactly the same thing. I'm convinced that they hit us with that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that didn't come from the black mold. That didn't come from the toxins that were in the house. This was separate from that.
Yeah, it was like a double whammy. The mold and all the exposure to that and the physical illnesses came. And then when I blew the whistle and filed suit against them, then that's when all this other stuff hit. The severe headaches, the insomnia, the nosebleeds, and all that. They just ramped it up. And frankly, it was pretty bad. So it was kind of a double hit. And I'm convinced now, obviously, that they were hitting our family with some neurological weapon. And my kids were just collateral damage because they were after me.
When you look at the documents, I just want to put up some of these documents here on the screen, Kevin, that you've sent to us from the doctors and these reports. Can you tell us what we're seeing here? And you can maybe just give us an overview of these documents?
Sure. The first thing they tried to, you can never say you work here without criminal penalties. Well, I was overt for some time, and I had those pay stubs. And I sent them. I said, no, you don't. Yes, I can. So I've got my performance appraisals that I did a FOIA. Got those. I think you got copies of those proving where I worked, and I was a top performer in several of the offices. And I'm not boasting.
Yeah, I just want to point this out. You're highly decorated and received multiple internal awards for your service. So this is not like, you're not fabricating this. I've seen the documents. You of course written about it in your book as well. So here they are. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I put them out, not to act like, Mr. Big, but just to prove to people that I am indeed who I said I was, and my credentials are out there for people to see, and that's important because the CIA tried to stop all of that, and then tried to brand me internally as paranoid, and so I took my family to a psychologist, and you have that document too, where the psychologist did an analysis of our whole family and said, I don't find Mr. Ship to be paranoid at all. As a matter of fact, I'm finding that there's serious neurological damage caused by something that happened on that base. So we have the diagnosis, and we have it in writing, and I got that because I knew exactly what the CIA was going to try to do. I tried to get him cleared so we could talk more openly about it because my family, especially my wife and older son, were really suffering, but the CIA refused to give him a clearance for 2 years, so we had to talk around everything with him. Well, essentially, my wife and kids had been diagnosed with PTSD, and these were 8 and 12-year-old little kids. And my oldest son at that point was, I think he just turned 17, innocent of everything, but because they happened to be my family on that base, they suffered pretty greatly. So I've got the doctor's diagnosis psychologically of what effect this had on everybody's neurology, and then I have the doctor's diagnosis of the immune system destruction of my oldest son from the toxins that were in the house. So they hit me with everything, I'm absolutely convinced that the CIA has got these weapons, and usually when we find out that the CIA has something, it's already 20 years old and they've improved it dramatically. Now they've got micro nanotechnology, and the brain is an electrical, a combination of incredibly complex electrical circuits. It's very easy to hit brain neurology with the right kind of weapon and scramble everything and do some damage, which I believe is what they did to me and especially my wife and kids who still have PTSD. As I mentioned, my kids still have problems. They're trying to save their vision, and my oldest son Joey we don't know where he is. He's disappeared, and he was off the charts with PTSD. That all happened like at the same time after we filed suit and I went public.
Every bit of focus and clarity that you feel begins inside your mitochondria, the tiny power plants in your cells. And when they weaken, your thinking slows, your energy drops, and even simple tasks feel harder. That's why researchers are so interested in methylene blue. Doctors have used it for more than a century to treat malaria, blood poisoning, cyanide exposure. In recent years, scientists have discovered something even more interesting. In small, controlled doses, methylene blue can support healthy mitochondrial energy production, especially in the brain. Dr. Anna Yaroslavsky from the University of Massachusetts calls it a cellular reboot because it helps the brain produce cleaner, more efficient energy. In 2025, the hype gained traction. People now use methylene blue to support mental clarity, sharper thinking, healthy aging, without relying on stimulants. But purity matters. Many products online are aquarium-grade blue dyes or unregulated powders that are not meant for human use. The wellness company's Recharge is in the league of its own. It's a pharmaceutical-grade methylene blue. It's paired with PQQ and NAD, the ultimate brain hack hybrid. So get 10% off plus free shipping. So head over to twc.health/redacted and use that code redacted to get a nice discount. Feel the difference. Think clearer. Recharge.
Bearskin is a proud sponsor of Redacted, and we are absolutely fans of them. Bearskin has a buffet of items that you can use for cold weather, windy weather, wet weather. It is all weather gear that you need to check out. It's also quite good looking. So go to text Redacted at 36912. We also want to tell you about the Bearskin hoodie. It is a fantastic, that's what you see right there, fantastic zip-up hoodie that can hold up against wind and cold temperatures. It also has several pockets. It also is customizable with various colors, and in fact, our kids like them because you know how teenagers don't wear coats to school. It's uncool. And plus, when you get inside the building, you don't want to carry around your coat. A Bearskin hoodie, though, is a great in-between, and they will take it, and we've had really cold temperatures like the rest of the country. So you can get 60% off the Bearskin hoodie today. Text Redacted to 36912 or go to bear.skin/redacted. One more time, that's bear.skin/redacted, or text Redacted to 36912. Bearskin, you'll be so happy that you did it.
It's just so heartbreaking that our federal government would do this to an American patriot who was trying to protect the agency. It's absolutely heartbreaking and demonic. As you write in the book, as you write in the book, one statistic really, I want to go more into this MK Ultra program and these weapons and all of that, but I just want to say, just to talk about like the demons that work inside the CIA. There's some good people there, but as you point out in the book, most of them are single. They don't have families. Most of them are alcoholics. Also, this comes with at least half of them. Yeah, they're sad people. Sad people.
Yeah. That's a very good point. When you get to the upper levels, especially in operations where the secrecy is, where the power really is, these people are malignant narcissists. They don't believe in the Constitution. They believe in their own advancement and the power and advancement of the CIA at all costs. And I'll give you an example. I led a team on an operation down in South America, and when I show up with a team, you always have to meet with the chief of station first before you begin your operation. And so I went to the station to meet him, went down in the basement where his office was. He's sitting there kind of in the dark behind a desk with one of those green library lamps, and he said, "Sit down, Kevin." So I sat down, and he goes, leans over his desk, and he goes, "Let me tell you something, and let's get this straight right now. I'll sell my soul to the devil for an intel. You got that? You understand what I'm saying?" I said, I remember thinking, that makes a lot of us do. I'm like, whatever, sir. It is demonic. And on this base, I think I've only revealed this in one other interview because it kind of ties in. The security guards who became my friends because I was really taking good care of them and started telling me they were ordered to surveil our family and follow us. They got the senior security officer, I'm not going to mention his name so they didn't get in trouble, but to come to me because they've been having sightings on the base. And he said, when they felt that they could trust me, he said, "Mr. Shipp, can I talk to you about something?" The guards are kind of scared of it. I said, "Yeah, go ahead." He goes, "We keep seeing a figure dressed in a long black like coat with this a face that looks like a goat. And now I know from my research that the goat's head is a satanic symbol going way back. And several of the guards had seen this, and I asked him to draw me a picture, and he drew me a picture of Baphomet, which is what he'd seen several times on this base. So I filed that away. I had kind of a black file where I just kept things like this for when I knew what to do about them. So my son has his friend over to spend the night. They go for a walk on this base, and I hear this screaming. Adam comes running in first, screaming in terror. I said, "Dad, calm down. What's going on?" He goes, I just saw this thing. I'm terrified. I said, "What is it?" He goes, "It was a figure with a long black coat and had like a goat's head." And Joey saw it too. Yeah. So there's multiple witnesses. What do you want to do with that? Well, I think demonic is the right word. The CIA at those levels in the dark is demonic, and they do demonic things.
But this is a CIA base.
Yes. Yeah, it's a covert CIA base. Even the acronym you couldn't even talk about. Now, it has since been in the Washington Post and the New York Times. I can't say where it is, but they did. But it was secret. There's a lot of skeletons buried there that if Congress found out from past illegal CIA operations, chemical agents and other things, they would shut the CIA down if Congress had the cojones. So the piece had all the CIA skeletons buried there. Some of them were percolating up out of the ground. And
literally, because as you point out in the book, I mean, like, people would find it, like stuff coming out of the soil. Yeah. I think it was Agent Orange and some other chemical weapons that were found there buried in the soil that you mentioned.
It was mustard gas and assassination pistols. It was like the earth was trying to spit them out, and then they were percolated, been buried, and they were percolating up and laying on top of the ground. So they didn't want anybody on that base because things like that were buried there and starting to happen. Well, now I knew about it. And Joey had been out walking the base and had actually, which he should have done, gone in a couple of the buildings. Many of them were locked, some of them were open, and saw some of this stuff. I think that's why they went after him so bad because he'd signed a secrecy agreement. So there's a bunch of stuff, bunch of skeletons.
And that's what kids would do. I mean, I grew up near a forest area, and we'd go out and build forts in the woods with me and my friends. You know, you'd go and you find old foundations that were back from the 1800s, and you dig around and find like an old hearth, an old fireplace and staircases in the woods and things like that. That's what kids are going to do. So you're living on a secret CIA base. Teenagers are going to go out in the middle of the night and look for things.
Yeah, and he went with the commander of the base's son. They both went together exploring. So
what do you think this weird creature, this weird person, do you think it was a human being wearing this cloak, doing some sort of a ritual with other people, walking through this base?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just had the counts and the drawings of what they saw. Was it a demon or was it somebody doing a psyop? Which is very possible.
Well, the CIA guards were telling you that they saw this. Yeah. So they were telling you that they saw these are guards. So perhaps they didn't even know what this was.
He didn't even know what Baphomet was. When he drew the picture, he goes, "I don't know what this is, but this is what I saw," and it was a Baphomet head on a long black cloaked body. Yeah, and then Joey and his friends saw it. What does that mean? That's the question. Excuse me. Was it demonic or was it some CIA psyops trying to scare everybody? Which wouldn't surprise me, knowing them on the base, just as a form of manipulation.
Let's talk about this MK Ultra program. So if people hear this, what do most people think it is, and what is the truth behind what the MK Ultra program is? I mean, maybe separate from your story, or maybe tied directly to what happened to you with this neurological electronic attack.
Yeah, MK Ultra was a horrific CIA operation where they were using drugs, different drugs, LSD, mescaline, and other things without the knowledge of the participants to monitor their brain activity. The goal was to create a born-like super soldier who they could program to go into war, willing to die, and just be kind of controlled mentally, or be a data mule where they would program an agent, would go and deliver the information to another agent overseas, and then he'd completely forget the information he was just given based on his programming. So he was a data mule, and if they caught him and interrogated him, they wouldn't find anything. So they were engaging in sexual abuse with these people, sleep deprivation, beatings. Even Ted Kaczynski went through MK Ultra, and I think he went through 200 hours of torture in MK Ultra. Hypnosis, verbal assault, just basically mental torture to see if they could break the mind down and then reprogram it. And that is basically what the CIA is doing those sorts of things, and they do it in the cover of darkness. And they use various forms of torture too. So, and the question is, did it go away? When the Church Committee happened and Frank Church brought it out that MK Ultra existed, well, the stuff hit the fan and everybody started screaming, we need more of this. Well, Richard Helms, the director of the CIA, immediately destroyed 10,000 MK Ultra documents so that Congress couldn't see them, and then threatened the CIA officers who were due to testify with prison if they violated their secrecy agreement. They tried that with me. So that's one of the means of control. So MK Ultra, they said after the Church Committee, well, we don't do that anymore. It's been done away with. Victor Marchetti, who wrote CIA and Cult of Intelligence, I don't know if you're aware of that book. He was the first real CIA whistleblower. He said they claimed MK Ultra stopped in 1973, but he said that's just a cover story. It continued after that. And Victor Marchetti was a very well-known CIA whistleblower, wrote the first real book on the CIA called CIA and Cult of Intelligence. There's an author, Elizabeth Nicholson, who's done studies. She's convinced MK Ultra still exists. And one of the classic examples is Sirhan, who was one of the shooters that killed Robert Kennedy Sr. Sirhan claimed he didn't remember anything about the event at all afterwards. And they went in there and they tested him psychologically, and he was so programmable they had him climbing a cell like a monkey. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. and I have become friends because of both of our kind of disenchantment with the CIA. And Bobby met with Sirhan. He said he had no idea of what he'd done at all, no memory of it at all. And the psychiatrists were so easy rather to program him that they had him climbing the cell, like I said, like a monkey. I'm convinced, an MK Ultra subject. I'm absolutely convinced of this. I don't want to speak for Bobby Kennedy Jr. We've become friends since, but I think he would probably agree with that as a classic case of it still existing. I did a program and interviewed a lady named Carol Warner. And Carol Warner is the daughter of John Warner, who was the chief counsel for the director of the CIA, Richard Helms. And Carol Warner said her dad couldn't take it anymore, and MK Ultra was going on. Her dad, Helms' attorney, quit because of the evil things he was saying. Told her that Richard Helms was the most evil man he'd ever seen, and he just couldn't participate in things like MK Ultra. I interviewed her, and she has since become a psychotherapist and has several cases of patients that have been subject of MK Ultra and display all the symptoms. She's out there right now. It's carolwarner.com, I think is her website, and she's still interviewing people in their adult years that underwent this kind of psychological torture.
So they tell us that it went away in 1973. And just to get some timelines out here, of course, the RFK assassination was 1968. So carried on well past that. We've heard from other MK Ultra whistleblowers who come forward and talked about it in the years since. And why would they give up such a powerful weapon? You can mind control individuals who can carry out assassinations or pretend to be an assassin as a patsy and be caught while actual CIA agents are actually shooting and killing JFK or shooting and killing RFK in a kitchen in Los Angeles. So it's very convenient. And then we can see, of course, what's been unfolding over the past couple of months, the assassination of Charlie Kirk and all of these things. So it seems like it's still very prevalent. But maybe you can talk about Venezuela, because we reported here a few weeks ago on Redacted that they used a directed energy weapon, and covering, of course, what Venezuelan soldiers were saying they were seeing as these operations where these special forces were coming into Venezuela, and they'd never seen anything like it. Their soldiers just sort of collapsed on the floor, felt like their heads were exploding, And then we heard from President Trump, who then confirmed it. Well, first from Carolyn Levitt, the press secretary, and then from President Trump himself confirming it. So this whole like idea of a conspiracy theory. Now, I've talked to separate sources who tell me that the technology they use in Venezuela is well over 20 years old.
That's correct.
And as you pointed out, very often when we learn about this technology, you said it about 20 minutes ago, it's been around then for like 20 years. By the time we actually start to hear about it, it's already been around for 20 years. So this technology goes back about 20 years. According to my sources, Russia has it and has used it in Ukraine. China has it, has access to the same, almost the exact same type of technology. So do you see similarities with MKUltra and what we saw in Venezuela? Sorry, it's a long question.
Yeah, no worries. Oh yeah, they did use that weapon there without question. There are witnesses that witnessed them using it, no doubt about it. And that's part of the reason they were able to go in so quickly and so successfully is they just mentally put down the adversary with that weapon. And I think that's pretty much an established fact that they used it there. And knowing what the CIA does to destroy whistleblowers, Gary Webb is a prime example. They drove him to, well, he wound up in a hotel room with 2 bullets in his head. They claimed it was a suicide, but they literally drove him into a deep depression by destroying every part of his life. And they have a whole program to do that. They tried it on me, to ruin you mentally, financially, take away your health insurance, your retirement, threaten you with prison if you violate the state secrets privilege, and just destroy you mentally and physically to shut you up. Now, I humbly am a person of faith, so I kind of answer to a higher authority, and I was not afraid of them. Plus, I was them. I was a high-ranking officer, so I knew what they were going to do, and was 2 steps ahead of them every time, like getting my attorney clear, which they didn't bank on me being prepared like that. They're doing these evil things, and they're doing it to people's minds, especially whistleblowers or anybody. In the case of Gary Webb, a journalist who digs too deep. That's why journalists don't do it. They're afraid of CIA retribution, and we're not seeing any journalistic investigations of the CIA anymore because they're terrified of them, because they want them to be afraid of them.
When you look back at the weapon that was used on you and this neurological attack, have you been able to dig more deeply into it? You have the documentation from the doctors on this and what was happening to your children's sight, PTSD, dementia, and your wife, what was happening to you. Have you been able to identify maybe specifically from your research what this weapon is?
No. Not specifically, and that's one of the problems with the abuse of secrecy. They're concealing this, so we can't find out exactly how these things work, except for the overt use of them, like in Venezuela and other places. No, I know that weapons in science out there exist to alter the human mind like that and damage the human mind in some university studies. Now, would the CIA use those studies? You're darn tootin' they will. The CIA is all about control, and it's helpful to remember, I think most people do, that the CIA has no morals whatsoever. It's a dark, at the upper levels, the 20% upper levels, it is a dark demonic agency that will do anything to accomplish its mission in its own eyes, its version of national security, which is the preservation of the CIA. They will do anything. Would they do this? Absolutely. If there are university studies on neurological attacks, would they use that and in the science department expand on that? You bet they would. Have I seen that weapon personally? No, I have not. And so that's the dilemma, because this stuff is so highly classified. They're holding it, so not even Congress can see what they're doing. Like the Church Committee, they destroyed Frank Church's career. If you remember, they threatened Frank Church. The CIA did. So if you take this any further, we're going to ruin your career. Well, he did, because he was a good man, and sure enough, they ruined his career. Both he and Otis Pike lost their elections the next time around. Congress today is afraid of that. That's why they're manipulated by the CIA also. Which brings me to another important point, if I may. There's mass mind control by the CIA. In that they've got Congress and the Senate terrified of them if they dig too deep. Remember the famous quote by Chuck Schumer? If you cross the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to getting back at you. And he was serious. Well, they do. I know. I've been there. So the congressmen and senators, even on the oversight committees, know if they dig too deep in the CIA, it's the end of their career, and they don't want to go there. That's why we're not seeing reform.
Do you see similarities, or maybe this is the same type of weapon from what we've seen with Havana syndrome reports?
I do. I think it's the same type of weapon. I think it's even more sophisticated than that. I think they've got the frequencies down, more sophisticated than that. And I think Havana syndrome, I think that's old technology, personally. And I think they've advanced on that. I'm convinced of that.
I'm trying to understand some of the mechanics here. Maybe you can paint a picture without telling us this base specifically, but you're at this secret CIA base that's, as you mentioned, it's been now revealed in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and I understand you can't say where it is. But maybe you could just describe the house that you were in and what was around you. And did you see anything that led you to believe that this weapon was being used in a truck or from a mile away, 2 miles away? Have you thought about that or researched that?
Well, we had trucks parked 2 streets down from our house all the time. And we also knew that there was the actual chief of the base was in the woods doing something when I first filed our suit. And then when we moved to Jacksonville, Florida, my now current wife, there were vehicles parked right outside our house with a man and a woman just sitting in them. And I went on one case in front of them and they just drove off looking straight ahead. But during that time, my current wife, both of us got hit with this severe depression at the same time. It lasted about 2 days out of nowhere. She herself would testify, something's going on. We were hit with something. So they're doing it, but they're doing it under the cloak of secrecy, which, as you know, my mission is to come out and expose the CIA's grotesque abuse of secrecy to cover up its criminal activity. This is one example. Some of the UAVs that we're seeing, that's another example of programs that are highly classified. In some cases, as Mike Pompeo and James Woolsey, former directors of the CIA, said, the CIA is engaging in operations that not even the director of the CIA knows about. It's the upper level parts of the agency. It's dark, it's immoral, doesn't believe in the Constitution, and that's what we have to address and do something about.
How widespread do you think this program is, MKUltra, today? Do you think it's, I mean, now it's probably buried deep down and at the highest levels classified. But, you know, if you were to say there's 100 people working on this program, 50 people working on this program, they've got agents around the world who are fully aware of it. There's sleeper agents like Jason Bourne style agents who have been manipulated in this way. How big do you think it is at this stage in 2026?
This kind of program, they would have at least the branch level staff, probably division level staff that would be running this thing. And I've spoken all over the country and on this issue, and I've had multiple people come up to me that were targeted individuals that were being, one day they're normal and the next day they're being hit with symptoms of schizophrenia or symptoms of severe anxiety. And they've actually come up and pleaded with me for help. There's a lot of people out there that this is happening to. Carol Warner, the lady I talked about who's treating some of these people, has multiple patients coming in that have been subjects of MKUltra, and she's, as a therapist, she's absolutely convinced. So there's a lot of people out there that are suffering from this, and some of them have gotten together with targeted individual groups, and it's tough because I've met some of them. I'm convinced that they are being hit with these weapons. A former NASA scientist and his wife came up to me, and I was, absolutely, they were being hit. And then other people, you don't know if, well, you know, is this a chemical imbalance, or, well, if they didn't have the chemical imbalance one day and the next morning they do, okay, then something's going on there. So with secret programs, it's like reaching out in the dark trying to find a cause, which is why the system is so diabolical. So yeah. I'm convinced that these exist. I know there are CIA whistleblowers out there that will never have a star on the wall that were destroyed, will never have a star on the wall, will never be heard from in their lives. I know at least least one person whose lives were completely ruined, and it was mentally. So I'm convinced it exists, and someone's got to investigate it somehow. I wish we'd see another church committee. I don't think Congress has the guts to do it, to take that risk. So as I always say, it's up to we the people to start demanding that Congress take an action and reform the CIA. Something that Bobby Kennedy Jr. especially and I are passionate about, taking the CIA apart and taking its gross abuse of secrecy and clandestine operation away from it, and put it in a new agency or some other agency that's accountable to Congress.
Wouldn't that be great? I mean, we see like the USAID program, right? It was all a big uproar. We're dismantling this, this Democrat machine that's funneling money to different countries. It's a money laundering operation. It's doing all sorts of horrible illegal things, including child trafficking. So yeah, we can all get behind removing USAID, and then what happens is it gets reformulated and funneled underneath Marco Rubio's State Department. So it's not called USAID. Yeah, it's still there, still operating. In many ways, it's maybe as nefarious, maybe not more nefarious because it was out in the open. Now it's being hidden. I worry about that. Like that's what I worry about. If we dismantle the CIA, you've got the Space Force has its own intelligence program now. What are there, 18 of these intelligence agencies?
17 total agencies involved in secret intelligence work. And Clayton, in terms of mind control, what that means is, for example, all the CIA's contractors like Lockheed Martin, SAIC, Booz Allen Hamilton, all of those, they have tens of thousands. I think it's over a million at least employees that have a CIA clearance, have signed a CIA secrecy agreement as part of that contract, and are now absolutely controlled by the CIA. Will never speak out because it means the end of their career, provision for their family, their health insurance, and their retirement. So there are tens of thousands of Americans out there bound by this system, which is another form of mass mind control, in my opinion. That they're frozen and they can't see it. Even if they see something illegal or unconstitutional, which some do, they're terrified to say anything about it because the CIA will hit them with violating their secrecy agreement, which they tried to do to me, and threaten them with prison. And that's how they do it.
Yeah, one night not too long ago, I wasn't drinking, but this individual who worked for Northrop Grumman was drinking and revealed that he was working for Northrop Grumman and that he signed, he has secret clearance and he can't talk about things, but he says it's pretty dark stuff. He fully admitted that it would shock the American people if they knew what dark things that they were working on, that he's sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, exactly. Lockheed Martin is the domestic surveillance spying arm of the CIA. And a lot of people don't know this. Lockheed Martin has
I'm sorry. Yes, he worked for Lockheed, not Northrop Grumman.
Oh, gosh,
yes,
that's a bad one. Yeah. That's a bad one. Lockheed Martin has a intelligence contract where they scan every piece of mail that comes through the U.S. Post Office. And most people don't know that. And I've gotten several letters that were pre-opened. I mean, I joke and say there are some perks being a CIA whistleblower. My mail is open before I get it. Well, sadly, that's true. When the first batch of Twilight of the Shadow Government came, I have a picture out on Twitter. When my box of Twilight of the Shadow Government, which CIA tried to stop, it had been sliced open and someone had been in there. So Lockheed monitors the U.S. mail and they monitor our mail that goes through the U.S. Post Office. They're a massive CIA contractor.
Would you say every piece of mail is monitored by Lockheed Martin?
That's what I understand. Every piece of mail or suspicious mail that they want to target, like me, for example, I don't know. But they have a program where they have the authority to monitor every single piece of mail that comes to the U.S. Post Office. Whether they look at them all or just specific targeted ones, I would think they do specific targeted ones just by the sheer volume, but they're doing it.
Wow. And that could explain why if you're expecting something important, it seems to take longer. If you've got a target on your back. Well, it was supposed to be here 2 days. No, it's taken a week and a half. That's odd. That's
it never arrives.
Yeah, exactly. I know all about that. I'm just curious about this weapon. I keep coming back to it because I'm sure you're connecting the dots for a lot of Americans, a lot of people who've maybe been subject to these type of weapons by the CIA. I've spoken to whistleblowers in the MK Ultra program who told me absolutely horrible things where they've been programmed to watch members of the U.S. military fight to the death. U.S. Army standing and forced to watch under this program as U.S. Army members are fighting to the death in front of them. This is part of some of this programming. Where they have to then compartmentalize it and not remember it, and they're only able to recall it once they get out, and then they're targeted permanently. I'm talking programs where they won't even drive cars anymore, where they have electronics in the cars because they've been run off the road, so they just drive bikes. They ride bikes now because that's
my son. That exact same thing happened to my son. Yep, they're doing it. Yeah.
He was run off the road?
He was run off the road. He was followed, tailed, and then they came up and slammed his car and ran him off the road. And a couple that was on the scene called me to say, no, it's true that we saw it happen. And then they took off. And Joey said, look, Dad, this happened. And sure enough, that's what happened. They did several things to him because I think they consider him a threat because he never signed a secrecy agreement. And he knows a lot of what is on that base. And his mail was routinely open. And what does a 17-year-old kid do when the most powerful dark organization in the world is targeting you every day? And they were. Imagine what that does to a young kid's mind. It's only 17 years old, Can't
imagine. Awful. So just as I wrap things up here, I just want to talk a little bit more about this weapon and how you felt the effects of this. Were you just sitting there reading a book, reading a newspaper, watching the news, and suddenly you just felt odd, or was it a slow burn?
No, it was immediate. And in the case of my wife and I, we're sitting there in the living room, and all of a sudden, and we just go into this deep depression, both of us at the same time, and it stayed for 2 days. I knew it was. I told her, I said, honey, we're being hit. And she's absolutely convinced. 2 days, it was gone. It was just removed. That's what it's like. And on the base with the headaches and the bloody noses and things, boom, it just hit virtually overnight. So yeah, you start feeling this horrible anxiety, and your head just hits you like this, and it's awful. You try to sleep at night, and there it is, just kind of vibrating. You start slipping into this deep depression, start having nightmares, and then boom, it's gone. So that's what it's like. At least that's my experience, what it's been like.
And from your experience, you see these cars parked near your house. Would you think it's something local, like it's a local sort of microwave-focused attack, or is it something that's done remotely from like 1,000 miles away?
I think in some cases they have these things mobile in vehicles. Other cases they can go, I understand, a distance of up to a mile to target somebody specifically. And think about the technology. They can read our faces via satellite in space. They can identify facial recognition from a satellite. So that's the kind of technology they have with these weapons. The cars parked outside our house were routinely a man and a woman in a sedan just sitting there looking straight ahead, motionless, just sitting there. Until I started going out confronting them with a flashlight, and then they just looking straight ahead, just drive away, happen routinely. And we were followed, of course, my current wife and I. So that's why my mission is to reveal to the American people what the CIA is, and especially in this case, because I'm convinced that they've tormented and are tormenting a lot of people that they consider aren't marching to the orders coming down from the national security state. And based on Palantir and other things now, and predictive programming, if you're against the national security state, that automatically makes you a target on their list. And in the war on terror, which got rid of the Constitution and the Patriot Act, they can do these things to you if they consider you a threat to national security.
Well, look at James Fishback, right? He's running for governor of Florida. He just announced yesterday that he will make Palantir illegal in the state of Florida. And I thought, oh boy.
Awesome. Good luck with trying that. I hope he's successful.
I hope he's successful too, but I thought, man, who just put a huge target on his back, right? These demonic forces. Unbelievable, Kevin. I mean, what you told us today, and I encourage our audience, please go read Twilight of the Shadow Government. It's an incredible book. We'll have it linked up in the description below. But just above and beyond that, thank you for trying to shine a light on MK Ultra, these nefarious weapons that they have access to, and what they're doing to American patriots who are trying to get our country back to the Constitution, to our founding principles in this nation. And it's so heartbreaking. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your bravery, Kevin.
Yeah, and Clayton, I want to mention too, I came on your show. I've been watching you guys for about a year, and you're one of the shows I trust, both you and Natalie. And that's why I've come on your show to talk about these things, because I really admire you guys and your program and your objective journalism. So thank you too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for your bravery, and we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you, Clayton.
Thank you.